The mind-body connection. What is it? What do we mean by this? And how does the idea of the mind and the body being connected influence our choices in lifestyle, and specifically our approaches to our health and healing? We'll look at this connection from a yogic perspective in today's session of Radio Bindu, your online wellness collective. My name is Yogatara. I'm your host for today's session, so without further ado, let's have a look. If you're like me and you come from a Western cultural background, or you've been schooled in Western science or psychology, you'll have a certain understanding that as a human being, indeed you have a body, a physical body, and a mind, and they may or may not be connected with one another implicitly. You might also embrace the idea, the concept of having a spirit or a spiritual dimension to yourself, but that had yet to be proven by modern scientific tools. What's interesting is that from a yogic perspective, the fact that as a human being we have a body, a mind, and a spirit is a given. And the fact that these three are not only exist but are interconnected is a fundamental principle. We find reference to this in the ancient texts of the Upanishad. And these texts are referencing not just theories, but people's lived experience, particularly the rishis, so those who achieved a certain state of meditative awareness. So the concept of the mind, body, and spirit existing and being connected is a lived experience, not a theory. That being said, as we go on to explore this concept of mind, body, spirit, I'd invite you to keep an open mind and see how these ideas and the framework presented to you falls on your ears, on your heart, and where it resonates with you. So let's have a look. The idea of the mind, body, and spirit existing and being connected is referenced in yoga as the framework of the Pancha Kosha, or the 5 sheaths. Kosha also translates as a body or a dimension. So in brief, as human beings, we're multidimensional. In fact, we have 5 dimensions to us according to yoga and Vedic knowledge. And this principle of the Pancha Kosha is fundamental to all yogic practice. You know, when you're going into a yoga studio and doing postures and breath work, you're actually doing much more than just using your body and your breath according to yoga. It's much more subtle. So hopefully at the end of this video, you'll have a better idea maybe of what you're actually working on beyond the physical body when you're moving in yogic practice. And I remember the first time I came upon this principle, this framework, was back in my 20s when I was diving into studying Ayurveda or apprenticing in that and deepening my understanding of yoga. And this understanding that there was a foundational principle that recognized the multidimensionality of ourselves and the fact that the mind and body and spirit not only existed but were interconnected at all times was a breath of fresh air, particularly coming from a background in biochemistry and being interested in the medical sciences. I was often frustrated that where I was studying didn't recognize what I knew intuitively and what I had experienced and witnessed around me. So, in short, according to yoga and this framework of the 5 kosha, the 5 bodies, we are in essence and at our core consciousness. This is our first identity, you could say. The essence of our being is pure consciousness. Some will call it spirit, some will call it soul, but it is that intangible, infinite being. And that consciousness is having an experience on 5 levels. Those 5 levels are, first, the physical body, second, the energetic body, third, the mental body, fourth, the intuitive body, and fifth, the bliss body. These bodies, or sheaths, move from more dense to more subtle, from tangible to intangible. But they're all part of our experience. They coexist, and they are interconnected and interacting at all times. And they don't do this necessarily in a linear fashion. This is an organic, multidimensional, multifaceted way of interacting. So in short, again, According to yogic principle, we are in essence pure consciousness. Having an experience in a physical body, having an experience in an energetic body, having an experience through the mind, through thoughts and emotions, having an experience through intuition, and through what they would call the bliss body, which is the closest to that essence. And now we'll have a look into each one of these a bit more deeply. The first body, the most dense and tangible, is the physical body. In Sanskrit, the term used is Annamaya Kosha, or the sheath related to Anna, foodstuff or grain. So it's the part of us that comes from basically what we eat. It is the same physical body that modern science recognizes with its 12 systems, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular, the musculoskeletal. If you were to look down now at your physical body, this is Annamaya Kosha. It is, again, something that comes from what we consume. So this is why in yogic practice, and particularly in higher yogic practice, we do pay close attention to what we're eating and drinking, because there's the understanding that basically what we consume becomes the building blocks for this structure. And we want it in the best condition, in the best health possible, because that makes the experience of it a bit more pleasant. So again, this physical body is not just a structure, but is recognized in yoga as the vehicle for the more subtle aspects of ourself, and in particular for consciousness. So the physical body is the most dense. It is what allows us to be embodied in this time-space dimension, and for consciousness to experience itself and interact with the world around it. So we approach it with reverence, understanding that it does have its limitations. It's subject to the laws of gravity, to time, it does age, it does have creaks and other things that happen to it, and it is always in the present moment. It is always in one place unless we're able to move it elsewhere. So understanding these three things, that our physical body comes from foodstuff, that it is the same 12 systems that medical science recognizes, and it is recognized with reverence as the vehicle for the most subtle aspects of ourselves. Beyond the physical body, the next one in subtlety is the energetic body. In Sanskrit, this is called Pranamaya Kosha, or the dimension related to prana. You might have heard this term before, and if you haven't, it basically translates in English as vital energy or life force energy. In other traditions, it's referenced as chi or ki, similar concepts. We don't have this concept in modern medical science, so there's not a particular reference we could have for it. It's not electrical energy, it's not chemical energy, and yet it comes up in our language and our discussion and our experience all the time. In brief, though, this energetic body is said to have relatively the same size of our physical body, a little bit beyond it. If you've heard of auras or you see auras, this is what we're speaking of. This pranic body is made up of channels through which energy flows, called nadis, and chakras or vortexes through which it is distributed, collected and distributed. So if ever you've been to a meditation class or a yoga class where they're working with chakras, this is the dimension that you're working on, your Pranamaya Kosha, your energetic body directly. Now, we receive our energy, this prana, from various sources. In particular, food, water, air, and the connections that we make. The subject of prana is a huge one, and it is quite refined, but for the sake of this little clip, we'll keep it as simple as possible. In short, there is the understanding that there is a cosmic source of vital energy called Mahapran. And we as human beings are substations of that. So we get a very small portion of it, enough so that it fuels and feeds our different dimensions. And indeed, this pranic sheath or energetic body is perhaps the most important dimension in our human experience, because it does feed the other shis, in particular, the physical body and the mind in part. So from a yogic perspective, our physical body is really just material, and it only becomes alive and has the ability to function when it is imbued with prana. Same for the mind. The mind would not really exist without prana being imbued in that dimension. So this is the importance of prana. And if you're having a hard time thinking or conceiving about energy, just think about what you might experience or say. Ask yourself, where are the places and the people where and with whom you feel your energy increase? And where are those places, or who are those people or those situations around which you feel your energy becoming depleted? You walk away and you're completely drained. You didn't make any physical exertion probably. You might have had to use your mind, but what we're talking about here is energy, and this is what we're referencing, is prana. So we receive prana, we use prana, and we always want to think about where we can put ourselves to keep our pranic levels balanced, purified, but to stay plugged in, so to speak, to prana. So we have a physical body, we have a pranic body. Next in line, and even more subtle than the pranic body, is the third one, which is the mental body. In Sanskrit, this is called Manomaya Kosha, or the sheath related to the mind. Now, just like the concept of prana, the concept of the mind in yoga is vast. The mind is limitless. It is not bound by time. It is not bound by space. But in this sheath, what we're referencing is what we might call the lower mind. And this is not an idea of hierarchy of good or bad, but really the different functions. So the lower mind in yoga is the mind that really takes care of all our instinctive functions. What we need to stay alive and functional. So it includes our ability to perceive, to have memory, to make judgments, to analyze, and it also includes our sense of self. It will, in general, include our instinctive emotions and thoughts. So maybe the emotions more around, we might find desires and greed even. So this is the level of mind that we are commonly aware of, hopefully, and that we're using in our human experience. It's important to note that the mind in yoga, this sheath, is not the brain. It's not limited to the head. The brain is one part of the mind, but the mind is not limited here. In fact, the mind, again, is limitless and is contained within each and every cell of the physical body and beyond. Interesting thought. So we now have a physical body, an energetic body, a mental body, and now let's go to the last two. The fourth body is the intuitive body. In yoga, this is coined as Vigyanmaya Kosha, or the sheath relating to the higher intelligence. So that tells you a lot about the fact that intuition is regarded as a form, as the higher intelligence of the mind. It is the part of our knowing that is beyond logic, and it is the dimension in which we experience the emotions that are more refined and more positive, like compassion and understanding and unconditional joy. And experiencing or inviting ourselves to practice and experience those emotions bring us into this dimension. It's the space where we're in the flow. There's not the strategy of the lower mind, which analyzes and thinks. There is just this knowing. And I'm guessing that you might have had this experience yourself or know people who have those flashes of intuition or just this knowing. This is what you're experiencing, this dimension of Vigyanmaya Kosha. When we are having not just flashes, but when we're living continuously in this knowing is when we are living through this dimension. And yogic practice is designed to help us move from our awareness, from living in the physical body and the pranic body and the mental body, into the more subtle parts of our potential experience, like intuition. So if you yourself haven't experienced this dimension yourself, I'd encourage you to be around yogis and masters who really live through this dimension. It's quite an experience to be in that field, because it is beyond the thinking mind and the strategic mind, and quite a beautiful place to be. It's like having a bird's eye view and just being in the flow of everything. We'll also tend to be tapping into this dimension of ourselves when we're being creative. When we're in a creative flow, you'll see musicians or artists. They are not moving through Manomaya Kosha, they're well beyond it in their intuitive creative flow. And again, some of us live more regularly through this than others, because this dimension and the next dimension we're going to talk about, the fourth and the fifth, are more subtle, and they are places where we might dab in here and there, but most of us might not live all the time. So beyond that fourth beautiful dimension of intuitive body is the last but not the least, the bliss body. In Sanskrit, this is called Anandamaya Kosha, or the sheath relating to bliss. And this is said to be the dimension of ourselves that is the most subtle, the least tangible, and the closest to our true essence of consciousness, pure consciousness, or spirit. So again, if you've ever had a chance to be around realized masters, people who have been in spiritual practice for some time, you'll know that you feel different around them. Things happen differently around them, and you yourself might experience yourself differently in their presence. There's often a sense of deep ease and peace and flow. And so when these people are living through this dimension, they offer others the chance to tap into this dimension that we also have. So again, just because we are not flowing constantly in that field, let's say, of bliss, does not mean it does not exist for us. It simply means that we are not yet keeping our awareness there, or able to keep our presence there. So, in a nutshell, according to yogic thought and framework, we, you, me, everyone is in essence pure spirit, pure consciousness, having an experience on 5 different dimensions: through a physical body, through an energetic body, through a mind, through intuitive mind, and through bliss, or the spiritual body. Our experience of each one of these will depend on where our attention is and where we place our awareness and the quality of our awareness. Yogic practice basically is designed to help us move from the more dense dimensions and staying stuck there and identifying and saying, I am the body, I am my thoughts, I am my energy, to move through those, to purify them, to make them healthy, to make them balanced, so that we can then move to the more subtle dimensions of intuition and spirit and begin to stay there longer and interact in different ways with the world. The mind-body-spirit connection, according to yoga, does exist and is quite an elaborate and well-thought-out framework. And again, this is not theory. It is something that the rishis experienced and have invited us ourselves to experience as well. In brief, we are pure consciousness having an experience on 5 different dimensions. We're pure consciousness having a physical body, an energetic body, a mind, intuition, and a spiritual experience, shall we say. Understanding that these different dimensions of us are interconnected and interrelating at all times. So what is happening in one influences the other and is influenced by the others. In yogic thought, we understand also that we are primarily living on the 3 lower dimensions, foundational: our physical body, our energetic body, and our mind. And if you think about it, where is most of your awareness? It's probably not always in the flow of intuition. If it were, you might not be listening to this video. So most of our attention and awareness is going to be based in our physical body, our level of energy, where we are getting it, where we're losing it, how we're feeling about it, and then our thoughts and our feelings. And what's really important to remember is that yoga is emphasizing that we are not these things. So we are not our body. We're pure consciousness having a body experience. We are not energy. We are consciousness having an experience of prana. And we are not our thoughts, nor are we our emotions. This over-identification that we will tend to have with these different parts of ourselves is the root cause, yoga says, of suffering. It is ignorance, avidya. To believe that we are something that we're not. And that something that we believe we are is our body or our mind or our thoughts or emotions. And yoga says, no, you're none of those, actually. You're pure awareness, just having an experience through all of those. Most yogic practice is designed to help us really tend to those 3 lower foundational bodies. So our physical body, energy, and mind. And purify them and balance them out so that we can begin to refine our awareness to be more consistently in the higher dimensions, the more refined dimensions that are available to us, namely intuition and spirit, still staying in a physical body. So this idea of being multidimensional beings on a day-to-day level is quite interesting, particularly when it comes to how we regard health and healing. So let's say we have something happening in our physical body. Well, we probably need to attend to it with the tools that are appropriate for the physical body. So medicine, whatever else we need to do. You're bleeding, you stop the bleeding. You're not going to just chant a mantra or change your thought. So using common sense and applying the tools that are necessary for the particular dimension that we are experiencing or having something happen on. But it also means that because we recognize that the mind and the energy bodies influence the physical body, that as something is happening on the level of the physical body, even if we're tending to it there, we can also bring in tools that will tend to the energetic body and shift the energetic field, or bring in tools that influence our thoughts and our emotions to begin to clear out the negativity there and begin to turn them towards more helpful thoughts and emotions, which we know have more prana, and will therefore induce the intelligence of the body, help support the intelligence of the body to heal itself or reach some sort of balance. All of that to say that there are many tools available to us, and if this is a completely new concept to you about using the level of your thoughts or the quality of your thoughts and your emotions to support your physical well-being, write down what's coming up and see where are your questions, where are your comments, put them below. I'd love to hear from you. And we will be spending the next few sessions of Radio Bindu speaking more about the psychological and the spiritual dimensions of healing. Healing physical illness, which is something that most of us as a human being will experience in this lifetime. Some of us acutely, some of us chronically. But it is a shared experience. So we'll begin to delve into those topics of looking at the psychological and spiritual aspects of healing. I look forward to seeing you there, and in the meantime, stay well.